All right. Can everybody hear me? How's everybody doing tonight? All right. How about this rain? So welcome everybody to the Diamond. Welcome to the future of the Boulevard. Well, future of Arthur Ashe Boulevard now. It wasn't quite official when we first announced this, so now it is official. I'm Michael Schwartz. I'm the editor of Richmond BizSense's. Really appreciate all you coming out despite the weather. It threw us for a little curveball, if you want the baseball pun. Originally, we were going to do everything down on the field, where we're going to have the happy hour here, panel discussion on the field, but I think we made the right call. So appreciate everybody doing a little standing room only. I think it's just adds to the ambiance. So thanks to everyone. We're going to go quick here because we have a lot to get through. We have a really cool panel, lots to talk about. First thing I'm going to do is thank our sponsors and introduce our panel, although most of you know who they are because you paid to come here, so you know who they are. But anyway, first thing I want to do is thank the Flying Squirrels, Parney and his crew, Hannah and everybody that really worked on the fly. We made the call at like 3:45 to switch things around. So round of applause to the Squirrels, the Diamond, and their crew, please. Thank you. So I want to thank our sponsors. We have a long list of sponsors. We can't do these events without them. This is our biggest event ever in terms of attendance, and I would argue in terms of just the interest of the topic. I'm going to go through, it's in alphabetical order, so that's the easiest way. And I'm using my cheat sheet. Aviva, they're our audio video guys. They do a really good job, set all this up in 30 minutes. So thank you guys. Anybody from any of these companies wants to raise your hand, give your show a little shout out, please do. BDO. All right. Hickok Coal. James River Nurseries. Right. Lippard Steel. There on the balcony. Raymond James. There you go. Richmond Gas Works. Hardywood. There they are. A lot of you have their beer in your hand. Safe Harbor Title Company. Sands Anderson. All right. SL Nussbaum Realty. South State Bank. I know I saw Bobby Calgo here. And Timmons Group. I saw a couple of you guys. I want to recognize real quick Drew Gould from Timmons Group. He helped us gather some interesting sort of factoid bullet points that Wes is going to use to inform the panel discussion. So thanks to those guys. So a big round of applause one more time to all those sponsors. So real quick, as if you didn't already know them, I'm going to go down the line and introduce the panel. When we had this idea, we had 5 panelists in mind, and we were fortunate enough, I'll get out of their way, to land all 5 that we wanted. So this is sort of our A-team of panelists. Mayor Levar Stoney. Todd Parnell. Ed McLaughlin. Kim Gray. And Andrew Basham. And now I'm going to hand the mic to Mark Horrigan. He's the CEO and namesake of Horrigan, construction company in town that you all know well. They were generous enough to put their name on this event as our presenting sponsor. Can't thank you enough for that. And Mark's going to say a few words, and then we're going to get going.
Thank you, Michael. We are really proud and pleased to be the sponsor tonight. With a long history in Richmond and deeply embedded in the community and a real concern for the entire region, we feel it's really important to sponsor this conversation on this really critical 60-plus acres that are here, what that could be in the future, and we're thrilled to be a part of that. So I think following on the heels of Parney's big announcement yesterday, I'm wearing the All-Star hat. Having the All-Star program here this summer is going to be fantastic for Richmond, and I think we've absolutely assembled an all-star panelists here, and they should be able to have a great conversation. So when I think about conversations like this, I like to think about what I do when I'm on different boards. How do we think about making the institution, the region, the area better, not for us, but for our grandchildren? Let's take that long view. Let's take that strategic view in what we do, and I hope our panelists will do that tonight in thinking about how we maximize this opportunity that's here. This site is one of just a handful from Washington, D.C. to Miami with 60 undeveloped acres adjacent to Interstate 95, with the rooftops and the demographics around it that it has, it is a prime development opportunity. And so this conversation really makes a lot of sense to figure out what that should be. So we need to think about, what about sports and sports tourism? What role does that play here in Richmond? Obviously a critical role, but what's the role here? How do we take the opportunities of what the community needs and dovetail that into this opportunity? And I think right now I'm very excited to hear the speakers. Let's get a plan together, and then let's go execute. So, Wes, take it away.
One more thing I forgot to mention. Sorry, Wes. So we want to give the audience a chance to ask questions, but because of the setup and the size, what I'm going to have everybody do, we set up a special email address. So as you think of questions during the discussion, send an email. It's pretty easy. futureof@richmondbizsense.com. So if you have a question, send it. I'll be watching them, and then I'll come back later with a handful of questions, and I'll call you out. Put your name and your company on there, and I'll name you. You stand up, wave your hand if you want to, and that's it. So with that, Wes McElroy, radio host from Sports Radio 910, The Fan now, correct? And there's nobody better in town that could handle this crowd of panelists here. So, Wes, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for coming out. Thank you, gentlemen. We're going to hit a couple different topics tonight. We're obviously going to talk baseball. We're going to talk about this land. We're going to talk about the history of this area in baseball. We're also going to talk about the future and the vision. What did this panel see this land, this area, looking like in 5 to 10 years? But before we go ahead, let's take a look back. And really, let's take a look at where we're at right now. As Mr. Horrigan said, we're sitting here on 60 acres. And that includes right here, parking lot, Arthur Ashe Center, and around in the surrounding area. So if we could kind of work from Andrew back. Let me start with you. From a developer standpoint, how valuable is this land?
I'm not that smart.
This one works. All right, can you hear me now? Great. Thanks, Wes. I think that's a challenging question to answer. I can tell you from our perspective, if you look at what's going on, maybe we'll call it Scott's Addition proper, and we'll refer to this as Scott's Addition North, perhaps for this group. We're seeing land transactions on smaller pieces of property anywhere from $1 million to $2 million an acre right now, which is a huge number. But when you look at 60 acres here and you think about the significant infrastructure costs that need to be made, and you think about what do the stakeholders want. I mean, this property is owned by the city of Richmond, and the people who live and work and have a stake in the city of Richmond really need to decide what is it that they want. You talk about Arthur Ashe Community Center. That's something that's a valuable asset, and it needs to be replaced. We have a great opportunity with the squirrels to include them potentially in this 60-acre redevelopment, and that's a huge asset. So I think the short answer is it would be a lot easier to answer that question if you were talking about 5 or 10 acres. We're talking about 60 acres, and as Mark said, one of only a handful of sites all along 95 down to Miami where you have this much land. So I think a plan needs to be put in place, and I think that will sort of guide the future of how this property is valued and what the next steps are.
Kim, let me take the question to you. How do you see the value to your constituents, to the residents, and how have you seen it grown in the past couple of years?
So I think a lot of the value is untapped so far, but for the area, on the school board, we held a lot of the property, the Arthur Ashe Center. We sold the Arlington Road warehouse. We question whether or not we own the warehouse that ultimately we left. But I was very keen on the value of this property and what it meant to our school district, because any properties held by schools, that revenue comes back to the capital fund, and I think that's important. But also, I think we have not, it's kind of a travesty that we have a building named after Arthur Ashe that's been not well maintained, that isn't very well utilized by the community. I think these assets are critical for our youth and for our community to be able to access. I get lost in Scott's Addition all the time. I love the energy. Andrew is on the board of Scott's Addition Boulevard Association, and the energy that is in that room and the entrepreneurial spirit is infectious, and I think that there's so much potential, and we need to make sure that we are listening to all of the community in any development and any movement that we make with respect to our city assets. So I think that's an important piece. I want to make sure we're thinking about the children in our community and how this area will serve them in the future.
Ed, from a VCU standpoint, why does VCU want to make a larger investment in this growing area?
Pass them back and forth. We're good. Well, I mean, I think, you know, you look at what we've done historically in this community. You know, whether it's athletics or VCU as a university, we've always wanted to be a good community partner, and a lot of our facilities now are used and shared by folks in the community. We do 27 graduations in the Siegel Center for the Central Virginia region. You know, obviously we made a huge investment in First Tee, the facility up on Chamberlain Avenue, a couple years ago, and completely redid that facility. So, you know, when we can find ways to benefit our students, our academic mission, and enhance our academic programs, but also do a great job, that might be your ride, by the way, Parney. Also do a great job for the community and help the residents, and I think it's really important as we look at this as we go forward. You know, we need to make sure we're serving the citizens of Richmond, the residents of the neighborhoods who live here, and make sure this is really developed, but we're not pricing people out of their neighborhoods as well. I think that's a really important concept, and I think we've done that really well at VCU. But as it goes forward, I think the sports tourism is a huge opportunity for us, as Mark said, to leave a legacy for all of our grandchildren who are going to come much more after us.
Parn, the proof is probably in the attendance over the past 9 years, but looking forward, why is it so important the Squirrels be here, stay here long term?
Well, whoa, hey.
Man!
Coming in hot, everybody. Not that I'm normally like that. I'm very subtle normally. But anyway, first of all, thanks for being here. I just told Eddie Mack, this is really cool to sit here and see all these people. And I said to the mayor, it'd be really cool if we had a space like this in a new ballpark where we didn't have to worry about the rain being outside too, right? But anyway, I mean that friendly. You know, we're a minor league baseball team, and when we came here 10 years ago, we came under the auspices, which I think means understanding. I'm not really sure what it means, but we'll look it up later. We came thinking that we were going to have a new ballpark, and we haven't gotten it yet. But the thing that I like about it is we fell in love with y'all, and y'all fell in love with us, and that's pretty cool. So thank you. But to answer your question, I think the future is so bright for all of us because look what we've done together as the Richmond Flying Squirrels and our fans here. One of the great things about July 7th through July 10th when the Eastern League, by the way, every question I get, I'm going to talk about the All-Star Week. So I'm just warning you right now. Presented by Genworth. Anyway. The thing I love about that is they're going to be coming here to Richmond, Virginia, and the reason that we're having 4 days instead of 2 is we're not doing the All-Star Game to have another game. We're doing the All-Star Game to show off the city that we fell in love with, and it takes 4 days and not 2 days to show off all the things we have to offer, and I think this 60 acres is a good example of the potential that we have to grow here in Richmond, Virginia. Think about 9 years. When I got here 9.5 years ago, somebody told me, Parney, after a game, don't go across the bridge. Now I tell our players, you have to go across the bridge after a game, right? Because there's so much going on. So think about the opportunity that this 60 acres lends to what the future holds, and all the things that Scott's addition has done could be perpetuated on this 60 acres.
Mr. Mayor, big picture of Richmond, how valuable, how important is this 60 acres?
I mean, I think you heard what Mark said at the outset. 60 acres along I-95 from Boston to Miami. There's no urban metropolitan area along I-95 that has 60 underdeveloped acres like we do. So the opportunities are limitless. However, I have to state that for a city that has 30% of its land that is tax exempt, and also that is landlocked with the inability to annex, we have to use every single parcel, every single acre to its highest and best use. And we also have to build a community outside of just a baseball stadium, which is also a need, but also there are a number of other challenges we have to also tackle as well. We need more housing. We want more green space. We want to be multimodal as well, so folks can walk and bike and also use transit to get. We want to create a community that's a person can live, work, and play. Live, work, and play. And no matter who you are, too. The area that we create with the vision from the community can be inclusive of each and every person who lives throughout this city. And it will attract people not just here from the city, but also in the entire region. The thing is, today, a number of people from Henrico, Chesterfield, and Hanover come here on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, to come watch the Squirrels play. Imagine how many more people can come to this area to buy and sell goods, and that revenue rolls right into our coffers. And so we can tackle the challenges of our schools, on our roads, on our infrastructure. So when I think about this property, or these properties, we're talking about $1 billion plus over the next 20, 30 years. Imagine what we can do that with that as a city.
Well, we're going to try to imagine it. We'll try to vision it as this goes on. But let's go back here. Over the past 9+ years, a lot have changed. ADs have changed. Council members have changed. Mayors have changed. Parn, you haven't changed.
I did gain a little bit of
Still,
weight.
you still look good.
Not
Still-
one bit.
You're still very
That's why-
sexy. You're good.
That's why we love you, buddy. But Parney, for people who don't know, who may be new to this area, what has been the most difficult challenge? And Mr. Mayor, I'd like for you to follow up. What has been the biggest challenge? Why is there not a new ballpark in Richmond yet?
Hey, thanks for coming, everybody. We're out of time. I mean, yeah, the All-Star Game's July 7th through the 10th. Have I mentioned that yet? I mean, that's a really tough question, honestly, because when we moved here, when Chuck Domino asked me to take this job, he said, we'll have a new ballpark for you to run in 2011 or 2012. So every day when I walk by his office, I call him a lying SOB because that's not the case. But anyway, I don't know the answer to that, Wes, but here's my answer to your question. As an organization, we took very early on a philosophy to control the controllable. And our focus became on you, our fans, as opposed to the question I got at every dinner, at every happy hour, at every, what's going on with the new ballpark? If I had $1 for every time I got that question over the last 10 years, would be in a palace right now because it got asked all the time. But what we became concerned about most was being different, being fun, and being impactful for our fans every single day. And honestly, we stopped worrying about the new ballpark. We want one, but we were focused on today's game where 7,317 people watched a baseball game at the Diamond at 12 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. And we got our asses whooped 10-0 too.
And let me follow up with for both of you. Look, I'm in sports talk radio. People call in, we all have opinions. And as I like to say, we all have opinions, we don't have the money to back it up. So if you wouldn't mind taking a couple minutes to educate the people, what have been some of the difficulties along the way to getting a new ballpark that maybe some people might not understand?
And Wes, I'm going to answer it a different way. But I think everyone in this room recognizes this because this is what they do for business. The foundation of making things happen in the city and in this region is relationships. Relationships, the doors have to be open, and communication lines have to be open as well. And our relationships, whether it's with the administration and the Squirrels, or the administration and VCU, or the administration, this city administration, and the counties, are stronger now than they were 5 years ago. That's just the truth. And I think everybody here on the stage knows that. And with the relationships being a lot stronger than they were a decade ago or 5 years ago, that creates the possibility for collaboration. Because we all have different interests. Business has their interests. VCU has interests. The Squirrels have interests as well.
Flying Squirrels. We're the Flying Squirrels.
Flying Squirrels, I'm sorry. See, we have a good relationship, we have a good relationship. But the ability to actually sit down at a table and say, you know what, we start with yes and not starting with no creates the possibility and the potential for development. And in the past, that was not available to any of the players at the table.
Ed, one more on this topic. Since we're talking about relationships, VCU hasn't been in the conversation before. It's been the baseball, the city. Why VCU? Why this time around?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I first got here, first of all, I'm happy we get the ballpark question because I don't have to answer the football question anymore. So I'm happy about and the ballpark's going to happen a lot sooner before football happens. I can tell you that. But it became really obvious to us that this area and this project and how this could go forward, the stimulus, the economic development that could happen around it, while still serving our needs and our student needs and our student athletes' needs. That was really the driver for us. I think the mayor said it well. The relationships are better. And faces have changed. We have a really active and forward-thinking city council. That's helped a lot. We have an administration that wants to make things better, not just in their own interest, but what's going to make wins for everybody. And I think that's the biggest part now that I've seen has changed. But, we have needs for athletic facilities beyond a ballpark, and certainly see this as an opportunity to be able to drive that forward.
Let's transition the conversation to bring you both in, where we can talk about the land, the area, and the vision. Andrew, from a developer standpoint, I'm sure you've researched this. What would make the most sense? If you're going to maximize this area through the research, what would make the most sense to do with this area?
Well, first thing I'd do is build a new baseball stadium for the Flying Squirrels. Right?
You get to stay up here now.
All right. I mean, there are a number of examples all over the country, Wes, where you look at...
it's all singles, dude. I mean, come on.
You look at...
this isn't becoming PG anymore. We got to go.
Yeah, right. You look at a baseball stadium, for example, being an economic driver of a redevelopment of an area that is currently underdeveloped. There's plenty of examples all over the country of that. So that model exists out there. So taking that out of the picture, I think what we've seen in Scott's Addition over the course of the last 5 years is over 500,000 square feet of new commercial office development, including some retail and restaurants and service-type businesses, somewhere around 2,000 new apartments, which is probably equates to around 3,000 people, all kinds of continued entertainment-type investments with, shuffleboard courts and the River City Roll type uses. And I think that the interesting thing to me about this area is that when you look at a lot of the other cities around the country that have seen this kind of development of a piece of property like this be successful, they were sort of operating in a vacuum. And here we are with the full pressure of one of the most exciting neighborhoods, certainly in Virginia, but I would say, we hear about it all over the country when we go places. At Scott's Addition, people are talking about it. So here we have sort of an incubator or a feeder to really look at redeveloping this area with a lot of the same uses. I think office, we continue to see people want to come to Richmond from out of town, looking for that sort of corporate headquarters type relocation. Certainly we bad for Innsbruck, but we hate to see those folks coming to the city. But they are, and we see people coming out of downtown as well. There's no hospitality to speak of in this neighborhood. You know, there's a couple of motels. I think there's a real opportunity there. Certainly more housing. You know, I think there's a running dialogue about affordable housing as a huge need for the city, and that feeds all these services and these businesses, and so we need all those elements together, and we have the opportunity to have all those elements together because of the amount of land that we have here. So the answer is everything.
Kim, two-part question for you. You've done your research. What would you like to see, and what has your constituents told you? What have you heard from the people in your neighborhood?
So that would be my first order of business. Then in those relationships, we have to have the people in the communities who are most impacted on board with whatever the plan is. So I think that we need to work together to develop a plan, a comprehensive plan for the area that has community buy-in. And I think that it can't be from the top down. It can't be us telling the community what they need or what they want. I think the community has to be a part of this conversation. And I think we're a little late with that, but I was speaking with the constituent. There are lots of my constituents here, and I said, well, how's that sinkhole thing going? Did it get fixed? And what he said to me is, it's Richmond good. And he kind of frowned at me. And I take that personally, because if Richmond good means we're not to the even basic standard of what things should be, and people get so frustrated and interacting with City Hall and trying to get a problem fixed, we've got to improve on that, and we've got to build that trust relationship with our communities. Richmond good needs to be the example of how things need to be done when people look at us. It shouldn't be Richmond good, I got so frustrated I gave up trying. So.
You and I spoke on the phone. You had talked about more open air spaces, a greener environment. Any specific ideas? I mean, if you could picture what you would like to see in that area?
Okay, I'm back.
There you go.
So, especially in Scott's Addition is one of the hottest neighborhoods, not just because of all the growth, but temperature-wise, Scott's Addition can be up to 12 degrees hotter on a really hot day than any of the other communities in the city. And that has a lot of health impacts. It has a lot more energy impact and environmentally. So we're talking, and Andrew has been a champion. He's kind of guerrilled out a pedestrian pathway on all the properties that he owns. Levar, Stoney has been helpful in getting our pedestrian bike pathway through Scott's Addition. We are working to make sure that when we have large developments coming, that we're having these early conversations and not making it so cost prohibitive, but white roofs and green walls, and making sure that we are thinking about those things, because not just because it's the right thing to do, but because it makes good economic sense. The number of Dr. Jeremy Hoffman has come to our Scott's Addition general membership meetings and given a presentation on the impacts and what it means cost-wise on the community, and how many ambulance calls on a very hot day Scott's Addition gets over other areas because of the heat. So we are working on a lot of different moving parts at one time, but the Science Museum is a critical part, the Children's Museum, the Redskins training camp, but we do need more green space, more open air areas. We need to have recreation for our communities, and that's an important part of any plan or use that we come up with.
Mr. Mayor, to you, what would the city like to see here?
Well, Wes, what I was going to say was I wanted to add to what Councilwoman Graves said, and that is what we do here in, what you want to call it, Scott's Addition 2 or Scott's Addition North, or right here on the Boulevard, it should complement the organic work that's already occurred in Scott's Addition. But also, I want to also tell folks that we can do something in downtown Richmond, we can do something in Shockoe Bottom as well, and I think they don't have to cannibalize each other. all three can exist. And it's great that we were able to build and create places in the city that are desirable for whatever a person may want. I always tell folks about who choose to live in the Richmond region, you know what? You can have a choice to live downtown. You should have a choice to live in Scott's Addition. You should have a choice to live in Churchill and in the bottom. And those are sort of desirable places we want to create for Richmonders. And in addition to that, I think it's opportune when we talk about master planning for this area. The fact that we are creating the Richmond 300 master plan, a comprehensive plan for the city, this is the time that while we have a master plan for downtown already because of the BRT planning, with the master plan for Richmond 300, this is the time to take up master plan for this entire area as well. And I think with that vision driven by Richmond residents, it will allow us to create something that I think is inclusive and equitable for each and every person. What I want to see is some of the concepts that Andrew spoke of, but something that is walkable, something that allows for folks to come down here, do business, folks who can actually maybe go to work and walk to the park as well, and live right down here all at the same time. But also, I got to also add this plug as well. Affordable housing is necessary too. As people continue to choose Richmond as their place to live, we got to create places, shelter for more people in the city, not just folks who can actually afford it, but folks who may not have as much money as others.
All right, it's time to inject baseball into the conversation. And Parney, let's start with you. Why does baseball need to stay here? Why should baseball be right here long term, 25, 30 years into the future and beyond?
Well, hopefully everybody here will agree that when we came here 9.5 years ago and said that we wanted to be three things. We wanted to be fun. We wanted to be different. Remember how many of you thought we were idiots for naming the team Flying Squirrels? Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Okay, be honest. Thanks, Ed. You weren't even here then. But most importantly, we wanted to be impactful. So to answer your question, Wes, the reason why minor league baseball needs to be here for the 25 or 30 years is not because of the 70 home games we play, but it's the other 280 days a year that we impact this community through dealing with over 125 charitable organizations, through Nutzy and Natasha making over 700 appearances in the community every year, and sports tourism. My good friend Jack Berry sitting right here. People fly into this city all the time because of minor league baseball. They drive into this city all the time because of minor league baseball. But to me, as a passionate person, it's all about the impact that we make on kids' lives, on people's lives, on families' lives. You know, the other day we had the Ask Foundation walk here on Saturday morning, and to see the impact that we make on kids and families who are fighting cancer. That's why the Flying Squirrels aren't just a baseball team in this community. The Flying Squirrels are what we wanted to be when we came here 9.5 years ago, which is an integral fabric of this community 12 months out of the year. That's why we need baseball here, not because of the games, but because of that.
Kim, when you talk to the constituents and when you look at your plan, do you see baseball here in the future?
Absolutely. I mean, how could I not? Baseball in the future of the Boulevard, of Arthur Ashe Boulevard, absolutely. I could not even part my lips not to say that I appreciate not only my own personal experiences, bringing my children to games and what it means to me to have the Flying Squirrels, but what it means to our community. It is a unifier, and when I come to the games, and it's the diversity of the crowd and the energy and the feeling, the good feelings, because there always is a charitable event going on and other
Plus, tell everybody, you got a huge crush on Nutzy, don't you?
we weren't going to talk about that, Parney. So we have this thing going with Nutzy. I emailed Parney that Nutzy took out a restraining order against me, but no, I'm a Flying Squirrels lover, and I think that they're a critical part of any development on Arthur Ashe Boulevard.
Ed, what would it mean for VCU to have a ballpark here, to have a facility here in this general area?
Hold that for me, would you? Hold my beer. Yeah, I think first and foremost, having a ballpark here would be impactful not only for our student athletes. I mean, the further out we go, the harder it is on their experience to be able to come over to where they play and where they're going to practice, all that. The further out we go, the harder it's going to be. But I really, I want to make sure everyone understands as we kind of go forward with this, we're not just talking about a ballpark when we're going to play games. We're going to talk about a community center where folks can come and do other things. And Councilwoman Gray put it a great way. Like it's got to be somewhere where folks can be outside and doing things. But whether it's the ballpark or an indoor-outdoor tennis facility that is part of our athletic village, Richmond's the only city in the top 50 in the United States without a public tennis facility. Think about that. The only city in the top 50 in the United States without a public tennis facility. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. So we have to kind of do these things and then have these facilities open 300 days a year. So, if a concert's happening in this town, it should be right in here. Outside in summer concert, Parney's going to supply the beer for everybody, so everyone will be happy with that. But, these facilities should have the lights on all the time so it can serve our citizens and the folks in this neighborhood, but also the residents of Central Virginia.
Kim, you brought up Arthur Ashe Boulevard, and that's going to be the appropriate name, the name going forward. What does that change for future development?
I think it's a draw. Having Arthur Ashe Boulevard on the highway when you're going 95, 64, I think it's a marker. I think it will be a place along that corridor. I have exits that I take when I'm going up to New York or south that I know it's a safe place to get off, to get a bite to eat, maybe use the bathroom, stretch your legs a little bit. I want Arthur Ashe Boulevard to be that for people traveling the corridor, to know that this is a place that they can go. It's family safe, it's great food, great entertainment if they want to stretch their feet a little longer. You can walk around. We'll have a Whole Foods in the area. I mean, we've got a lot of great things happening. So I see Arthur Ashe Boulevard as a place marker for people in their minds to know, hey, take that exit. We're going to, we're going to stop off there for half an hour to an hour on our way to Florida, and we'll be able to get a good bite to eat. There's this cool restaurant. There's a brewery, Don't drink too much if you're getting back on the highway, but you know what I mean.
I wanted to add that I think that I want Arthur Ashe Boulevard to be a prestigious address here in the city of Richmond. I want folks who live off of Arthur Ashe Boulevard, who play baseball off of Arthur Ashe Boulevard, who do business off of Arthur Ashe Boulevard, to be proud that they're doing it right here in the city of Richmond. That's what I see Arthur Ashe Boulevard being. And I think whatever we do here is just extra bonus to the name change to the Boulevard.
All right, now let's look to the future. What has to happen? What steps have to happen? Mr. Mayor, let's start with you. What has to happen to make this the best case scenario for everybody moving forward? What are some of the bigger steps?
Well, I think we have to do some master planning, right? That means working with our planning team with Richmond 300, involving the comprehensive planning, what's going to go on right here. We have to, I know that in Parney, and I think that Ed can talk about it a little bit about what's going to happen with the property across the street with the ABC, because those dominoes have to fall as well. But what I want to prevent, and I think I thought it was premature early on, that is, this can't be a project that is, we can't complete this project with a bunch of one-offs. This has to be master planned. This has to be done with a totality. And I think in the past, there has always been a rush to maybe like, well, let's just build the stadium and figure out everything else next. No, let's comprehensively look at this area and do it all collectively in total.
Ed, if you'd like to follow up on that, what do you think are some of the bigger steps for this to happen?
Well, I think conversations are the first most important part of it, and I'd certainly encourage everyone to look at this 60 acres as a central cog to 200 acres of development. We have to really start looking at this as how are we connecting 95 to Broad Street, in a few different directions as well. But it's going to just take folks coming down and saying, okay, what's going to make wins for everybody? And it's the most important part. We can't leave folks out of this. We can't say, this is great for everyone, but it's not great for VCU. This is great for everyone, but it's not great for the Squirrels. Like, we have to find ways to find solutions. And in life, you can either be one who finds problems or you can find solutions. And I really do think now we have folks, not only the folks that are up on this panel, but a lot of other folks that are working that want regional collaboration, that want to make sure we do what's best for everybody. But it's folks finding solutions, and I really do believe we're at a point in time we have folks who will find solutions, and now we just have to make sure we're thoughtful as we go forward.
Kim, please.
So in that everybody, I think the residents, many of them are long-standing residents in Sherwood Park, Ginner Park, and the area, and Rosedale, need to be at the table. We need to know what the noise impacts might, Dennis, what the noise impacts might be, what the hours might look like, what the lighting, the sounds. You know, I enjoy sitting in the neighborhoods and watching the fireworks when there's a game night with fireworks, but not everybody wants that level of noise traffic all the time. So I think
I realize that.
There has to be...
I get the emails, I know.
There has to be a balance, and there has to be consideration on the traffic and on all of the things that impact our community. Stormwater is a big issue around here. We have flooding. So we've got to really be on the ground listening to folks who know what's happening on the ground and address those concerns early on so that we have full community buy-in.
I'm going to start with Kim, then go to Andrew, and then the mayor on this one, because everybody wants to know about money. If this land is no longer needed for the Squirrels and VCU, how do you financially see this moving forward? What do you think might be the best plan?
Oh, it's back on. It takes a second. I think that's what it is. The financial plan for this whole master plan, I think it would have to be something that we map out ahead of time and know exactly what is being paid for by whom, and that our tax dollars are being leveraged but not putting our taxpayers on the hook for these shiny objects. I think that I think it's important to leverage what we have. We're not at home on prom night at 7 o'clock waiting for the phone to ring. We are a valuable neighborhood. We have valuable assets, and we need to protect those city-owned assets in a way that we're not putting our taxpayers on the hook. We have to do comprehensive financial plans that make sense for all of us.
Andrew, is there a structure, a financial structure that you know of that you can compare to in other cities or other areas?
I'm a big advocate for tax increment financing. You know, what that means is that you take a district like this and you would sort of fix the tax base, and then any increase in the value of the real estate and the corresponding real estate taxes would go to fund bonds that would in turn fund the infrastructure and some of the improvements that might be needed in order to make the vision that everyone shares here come together. There's plenty of models around the country where that's been successful, and there are places where it has not been. Again, I think we're in a unique situation here because this is such a great piece of real estate that we're talking about compared to some of these other places around the country. I think the closest, I guess, regional correlation to what we have here, in my mind, that people might be familiar with is the TIF district around the Virginia Beach Town Center in Virginia Beach. That was set up in 2000, and it's largely been successful. I bought a blank check here in case Kim and Levar wanted to tell me how much they want for this, but here's my notes. 25 acres, 17 city blocks, around 1,000 apartments, over 400 hotel rooms, over 800,000 square feet of office, and a performing arts center. And that's right here in our own backyard in Virginia Beach. And that was a far inferior location, in my opinion, no offense to those of you for Virginia Beach, to what we have here. So I think it's something that we should consider. It's something that, to my knowledge, hasn't been done here in the city, but it's a proven financing vehicle. And I'll be honest with you, I think that if we can figure out where this baseball stadium is going, that the private sector has been chomping at the bit for 15 years to come in here and make private investment in this area, and I believe that that will continue. And I will just say, we have a window. If we take too long to come up with this plan and to move these dominoes forward, then we may have to wait another 15 years. So I would advocate for, let's do this.
My doctor says I don't have 15 years, so we got to hurry this stuff up.
And I was going to add to Andrew is that in order for this not to take 15 years, we all got to start at yes and then find middle ground on what we're talking about here. And that means it will take some sort of investment. It will take some sort of investment, but at the end of the day, it should not be the city or the taxpayers who are left holding the bag if the revenues don't materialize. At the end of the day, also, we have to recognize that it takes infrastructure to build a community. It takes really good roads. And guess what? We can't just build roads once and not maintain them for the next 30 years. So we got to be able to, we want to create a community that have maintained roads, that don't have potholes in it, and also the utilities are working and whatnot, and that means it's going to take an investment from the city.
There's so many people that come from Henrico and Chesterfield and Hanover to the Squirrels games. Is it worth pursuing? Is it something you have to pursue to get the other counties involved?
As I said earlier, I think what we have today that we didn't have 5 or 10 or 15 years ago is that the lines of communication are open. And so conversations will be had about what our friends in the counties expect from this. I think this is a regional hub right here. We're not the only city in the United States of America where the baseball stadium or any other regional amenity is located inside the city, and counties are also there at the table as well. I think everyone has to be at the table right now. The number of those who are ticket holders who buy tickets for the Flying Squirrels are from Hanover and from Henrico and from Chesterfield. They should have a say on what's going on here as well.
Before we turn it over to questions, with the prospect of the ABC moving to Hanover, is there any updates, any timeline, anything for you and Ed? Is there anything that you'd like to give to the audience?
Yeah, you can go first if you want.
No,
I'd say this. I mean, I think obviously there's been stuff reported in the news about what was included in the budget, the state budget this year. That was super positive, but I would say it is a first step towards moving things forward. I think everyone's here sort of talked about there's a bunch of steps that have to go into making this happen. There's a reason why this has been the tiredest question in Richmond for the last 15 years. But certainly we've made a good first step in terms of the language that was included in the state budget this year, and we're hopeful making more steps very soon.
There still is one more question on the table of what
I just answered that question.
You get one more. Come on. Ed, you've been on my show. You know there's always one more. And I want you to think about this, of what you hope this area looks like in 10 years. And I'll give you some time to think about it, because I'm going to turn the microphone back to Michael Schwartz, editor of Richmond BizSense's, because he's got some questions from the audience. So, Michael?
Come on, give him a round of applause. I mean, check his
yeah,
email.
Michael.
All right. Amazingly, we only have 2 questions, really. And one's sort of more of a suggestion of what this person would like to see. This is from Bethany Rolando. Can there be a dog park in this area once it's all developed? So do with that what you will.
There is a dog park. Every Monday night at every Flying Squirrels game, you can bring your dog to the park. So this is technically a dog park.
Question answered. All right, and one more, since I know we're running late on time and everyone probably wants to get another beer. And this is a really good question from Sharima Williams. If you want to raise your hand, please do. What role or how does the Redskins training facility fit in to future development here? I think that's a really good question. It's not quite on the boulevard, but it's right there. Mary, you're nodding like you want to maybe jump on that one.
Well, I think there's a lot of room for some connectivity. Here's the thing: we have the city has an agreement with the Redskins until 2020, but that doesn't mean that they don't have an agreement with the Commonwealth of Virginia as well. They have an agreement to renew after 2020 with the Commonwealth of Virginia, but our deal currently with the Redskins ends in 2020. That leaves an opportunity for future development with that area as well. Matters what they choose to do. But I see some connectivity. We have to get across those train tracks as well. And I think, what Andrew, when you talked about connecting these different parcels too, this is what's done in other cities. And I think in order to actually bring these areas together, Scott's Addition with this area as well, there's going to be a little bit of connectivity necessary.
Hello? All right, there we go. All right, so that's it from the audience questions. If anybody else has a question, we're going to post a story on our website tomorrow morning. You can post a question in the comments section, and people will run with it for sure. So, Wes, we have 2 more questions, kind of a lightning round to leave you with something to ponder.
By the way, you guys all know how this works. You're going to get flooded with questions when you get up out of here. All right, final question of the night. Andrew, we'll start with you. In 5 years, I would love to see blank in this area. Fill in the blank.
I think we want to see green space. We want to see housing of multiple types. We want to see services. We want to see opportunities for the kids to grow here. We want to see this connectivity with this trail that we're working on. And I think we'll see all those things.
Kim?
I would say all of that plus a doggy park. But I think we have an awesome opportunity, and this is one of, if not the hottest area, I would say potentially on the East Coast, if not the nation, to be developed. And I think that we need to be very deliberate about it, and diversity is important in income and ethnic and racial makeup. I think that we have a lot of opportunity here to gain ground, and we won't get there if we're not having those conversations at the ground level with people in the communities so that we can get the buy-in that we need to move forward. So I think that's really important. Redskins does play a big part because I was on the school board when that was being proposed, and I did not think it was a good idea because it utilized debt capacity that I thought we should be using for schools. And I'm on the city council when we had to refinance that deal, and $11.5 million. So I think there are lessons to be learned with how not to do things and not to believe all the fluff that you hear. But I do think that there's a lot of potential at that site. But what's happening here in Scott's Addition, thanks to Andrew and others like him, is happening in spite of some of the things going on in the city, not because of it. And I think that we need to start making it happen because of what we're doing in City Hall, not in spite of what we're doing in City Hall.
Ed, if you would give your answer, but also from an AD standpoint, because college sports is so much with keeping up with the Joneses, from the athletic director of VCU standpoint, what would you like to see in 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think in 5 or 10 years, we should be able to look at as the model of how sports facilities and sports tourism can help drive the economics of an area while not losing the integrity of the neighborhoods and the community in which they exist. I really do think, in college athletics, people are spending money like crazy on facilities, but I think we can be a model of how you can spend money on facilities but partner and do well in your community at the same time. It can't be that we have stuff that the doors are shut and the folks who are residents of these neighborhoods or the city don't get to use them as well. But I look at from our perspective that this is transformative. And I talked to the day I got here, I want to win national championships, and I still think we can do that, but we need these facilities to give our coaches and our student athletes the ability to do that, and then we can paint the city black and gold once we do.
Big Guy, this question's for you. 5 to 10 years, what would you love to see in this area? and being the baseball guy that you are, what would you love to see if you close your eyes at night for only like 3 hours sleep that you get? But what would you envision in your ideal ballpark?
Well, I agree with everything Andrew said about all the things. I think it all connects. Obviously, I want a minor league ballpark and a ballpark that we share with one of my best friends in the world, Eddie Mack and Sean Stifler. And by the way, I just take a moment. Like, this relationship between the Flying Squirrels and VCU, it's special, man. It doesn't happen anywhere else. Like, it's really, really special the way we work together, the way we get along. It's not easy to share a baseball field when we're playing at the same time and both teams are trying to win games and practice and everything else. So this is really, really special. When I close my eyes, besides the Parney statue out in front of the ballpark and Parney's Pub in the ballpark, I see, somebody clap for Parney's Pub? All right, yeah. 360 degrees where dad can hold hands with their kid and walk around the ballpark with the Squirrels hat on backwards, where players can have a catch with somebody in the outfield warming up instead of warming up with the player. We're not in the baseball business. We're not in the entertainment business. We're in the memory-making business. So a facility where memories can be made in generations and generations of Richmonders and people from this entire region, because the mayor's right. We have Henrico County, Hanover County, Chesterfield, Richmond, and people from all over the country come here to watch our games, can make memories together, and it becomes a generational thing. Even Coach Rhodes, Mike Rhodes is another great friend of ours. He told me the other day, you know, my family, when I was a head coach at Randolph-Macon, we used to go 20 deep to 4th of July, and it's a tradition. And it's probably a tradition for a lot of people in this room. So just continue to build traditions, a facility that continues to make memories, and most importantly, a facility that continues to help us make an impact on the community 12 months a year. Again, it's not about those 70 baseball games, hardly at all. It's about high school graduations. It's about high school proms. It's about business meetings. It's about college fairs. It's about all that stuff. And if it's a facility that we can design like that, and concerts, by the way, then we could be live 300 days a year, which would be transformational, which Ed will tell me what that means after the show.
Mr. Mayor, cap us off.
I want us to all create a destination for people from all across this country, right here, smack dab in the middle of the city of Richmond. From people who can actually come here and enjoy what Parney just spoke about, but also for people who live here in the region, who live here in the city, who can live, work, and play right here in the city of Richmond. That's also a generator, a tax-generating community that allows us to actually fund some of the priorities we have in the city, whether it's public education or better infrastructure or better housing. And I think we can do that right here on the Boulevard.
Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our panel tonight.
What'd everybody think of that? Round of applause. Andrew, Kim, Ed, Parney, Mayor Stoney, Wes, thank you very much. Well done. Thank you all for coming. Big round of applause again for our sponsors. Horgan, our presenting sponsor. Stick around, have some drinks, some food. The weather's nice now, so thanks for coming. We'll see you around.